Good morning. I had the opportunity to interview actor and narrator Michael Nunn for the play 12 Angry Men. It was produced in January 2016 at the Old Town Playhouse in Traverse City, Michigan. And the director was Debbie Hershey. There have been 187,854 views seen since the year of 2016. And it was a masterpiece of theater.
I'm an actor here in Traverse City. I'm sitting on the set of the play 12 Angry Men at the Old Town Playhouse. I've been asked to talk a little bit about myself and the other characters and the play. None of us has names. We're all designated by the playwright as having numbers, juror numbers. I play juror number 11. This is a 12-man jury. The play is a period play set in the mid-1950s in New York City. The setting is just a single scene. It's the jury room. We're all locked in. And we have been asked by the judge to decide upon the guilt or innocence of a young man on trial for murder. He is alleged to have stabbed his father with a switchblade knife, and the entire body of the play describes the circumstances of the murder and whether this young man should be decided guilty or not guilty. I'm a character actor. I've been asked to play a German immigrant who has come to the United States during the rise of the Nazis in Germany, and this character apparently emigrated from Germany right about the time that World War II began with the attack on England and the subsequent events that led to World War II. So I'm a relatively new citizen in the United States. I'm a watchmaker. Each of us gets a certain amount of information that we glean from the script, and there is a very brief, maybe one paragraph description of each of the characters, who they are, kind of where they're from, what they do. So what I have gotten from the script is that I came to the United States fleeing from the Nazis in Germany. The rest of who we are, we pretty much decide on our own as actors. I think it's important that we know more than just what we're given, even if we have to make it up, because it tends to flesh out what we offer in these roles in the play. So there's some things about my character, who is a watchmaker. I'm asked by one of the jurors, what do I do? And I say, I'm a watchmaker. My character still has an accent, a Middle European accent. I'm not, I don't consider myself an accent specialist. I'm very good at certain accents. I've never done a German accent before, but as an actor, I take it upon myself to study that and develop this accent, not only to be able to pass myself as you know, someone from Germany, but also to help determine who it is, exactly who the character is, not just how I speak, but the words that I choose and how I choose to accent certain words. All of those things are something that we actors do homework about.
Well, this then depends upon your definition of panic. He was calm enough to see to it that there were no fingerprints on the knife. So where does his panic start and where does it end?
Listen, you can forget all that other stuff. He still came back to dig out the knife and get rid of it.
3 hours later?
Sure, 3 hours later.
If I were the boy and I had killed my father, I would not come back 3 hours later. I would be afraid that the police would be there. I would stay away, knife or no knife.
Listen, you voted guilty, didn't you? Whose side are you on?
I don't believe I have any loyalty to one side or the other. I am simply asking questions.
Now, having talked about number 11, I could say just a few things about the other jurors. And as the foreman says in the beginning of the play, why don't we just go in order and everyone talk about what their thoughts are about this trial. So starting with the foreman, we see the foreman as a younger man in his 30s. Clearly, he has not served on a jury before, certainly not as a foreman. And he struggles with the authority that the court invests in him as the foreman, because the role of the foreman is to, it would be very much like a chairman, to conduct the proceedings in an orderly fashion and make sure that the jury properly arrives at its verdict. The judge gives no specific instructions as to how to go about that. And so at certain points during the proceedings, the foreman's authority is brought into question. And so he has to kind of pass a test. And he reveals through the course of his discussions that he is an assistant football coach at a high school. And that he's certainly capable of leading a group of young men in a concentrated and focused effort. And so from that perspective, he does have the knowledge that is required to be an effective foreman. But this is a different kind of environment. These are not kids, these are grown men. The foreman is, he's not a taskmaster. He doesn't want to offend anybody. And there are many times that the situation in the jury room gets very tense and it gets right on the edge of disorder and chaos. So the foreman's job is, in this play, is a very difficult one. Moving around the table, juror number 2 is a wonderful character. He is actually played by someone who in real life is a psychologist, and a psychologist who was married to a neurologist. But he has some theater experience, and he plays one of the more difficult roles in this script, in that he's kind of mousy. He reveals that he's a banker and probably just a teller. And he kind of fits that stereotype. He's small in stature, he wears thick glasses. He does have opinions and he tries to voice them, but he's very unsure of himself in a group, as many people are. Speaking in front of a group of people can be difficult because not all of us get a chance to practice that. And in a real jury room, those are skills that are tested. So in this play, number 2 is looked upon as kind of a mouse, and he gets a little abused by some of the more aggressive jury members. And to be able to play that really well requires effort and concentration. And our number 2 is wonderful. It's one of my favorite roles. Moving on, we get to number 3. And number 3 is one of the real fulcrums of this drama. Number 3 is convinced, as we all are at the beginning, but he's convinced more than any of us that this kid is guilty. And during the course of the action, we discover that even though he says it's not a personal thing, number 3 is really projecting on this young defendant his own experiences with his own son, with whom he had a very rough upbringing, and when his son became an adult, they had a parting of the ways. And so there's a lot of transference, if you want to use psychological terms. Number 3 tends to confuse this defendant with his experiences with his own son. And he is the most stalwart proponent of the guilty verdict. And he's played by a wonderful actor. In the script, this guy is someone who has pulled himself up by his own bootstraps. He runs a message delivery service with dozens of employees. So he's very sure of himself and very proud of himself. And he admits that he has been on juries in the past. So this is a character that you really pay attention to when he's got something to say. And he's pretty much the needle in everyone's side. And not just bluster. I mean, he's very clever, and he paid attention during the trial, and he's able to bring up points of evidence to counter those other jurors who develop some doubts as to whether the prosecution really proved its case. A wonderful role. Going on to number 4. Number 4 is a stockbroker, a finance guy. Very dignified, very intelligent, but very cold. Although he's well-mannered, he is not offensive, and he's one of the peacekeepers in the jury room. But he gives the impression that he's kind of above everyone else, without actually having to say so. And so his opinions, he's another one of the holdouts who sticks to the evidence as presented. And the evidence presented is pretty compelling. There's an eyewitness who claims that she saw this young defendant stab his dad. Number 4 appears as the voice of reason, and he clings to the testimony as it was presented, despite the fact that others are putting chinks in the armor of the prosecution. Number 5 is the youngest of the jurors. He's a young man who works as a nurse in a neighborhood hospital. The play is located in New York City. And number 5 works in a, probably somewhere around Harlem, one of the poorer districts of Manhattan. And he services the population that was his community growing up. And he grew up in the slums. And he identifies with this kid because this kid has grown up in a bad area. So number 5 has a lot of personal compassion towards the defendant. And he is crucial in helping put some doubt on some of the evidence that the prosecution has presented. One of the things was the murder weapon, and as it turns out, number 5 was kind of a miscreant himself as a young man, and admits to having had expertise with that kind of weapon, and did not believe that the prosecution was accurate in describing how that weapon could be used. So number 5, Again, he's another person who doesn't like to talk in front of people, but when he's convinced that the evidence is going the wrong way, he stands up and speaks his piece. Number 6 is a painter. He's a big guy, a simple guy, pretty common sense, who has gone along with the prosecution because the prosecution presented a pretty straightforward case. It was not real dramatic. The evidence was pretty compelling. And number 6, just being a common sense guy, went along with that. But also being a reasonable person, when doubts are brought up by some of the other jurors, he thinks about that. Number 7 doesn't want to be there. He makes it real clear to everyone that he's got a baseball game that he wants to go to. And he's kind of the jokester of the group. He's got wisecracks that he's saying. He tends to get the discussion off track a lot with his flippant attitude. But at the end, he becomes reasonable like everyone else. Now the next juror, number 8, is really the fulcrum of the play. Number 8 is the one, without revealing the plot, he's the one who wants to talk about this. Let's talk about what happened, rather than just everybody voting guilty and sending this kid to the electric chair. He shows real compassion for justice, not just for this defendant, but for the process. He wants to make sure that the jury has engaged in due process. So number 8, he really is the individual around whom everyone else in the jury room swings. Number 9 is the oldest, as number 5 is the youngest. He's been around. Number 9 is not easily excited. He tends to sit back and just look at what's happening. He's a little slower to come to conclusions than everyone else does, but he comes to a very important conclusion well on into the play that helps change the direction that things are going. Number 10, if there's a stereotype in this play, number 10 is it. He is the bigot. He's the racist. He's the one that picks fights throughout the whole process, and he really stands in the way of due process. At the very end, he finally says, "I don't even care what the law says." And of course, he has to be confronted at some point. But he's kind of like the physical tension in this play. Number 11 is me. I've already talked about that. Number 12, the last juror, is he's an ad man, a 1950s style ad man. And he's an okay guy. His life is full of sayings, cliches. Let's run it up the flagpole and see if anyone salutes him. And he is called outright wishy-washy at one point in the play because he changes his vote back and forth almost on a whim. But again, he's not somebody who wants to stick out. He's a follower. And his pride in being unique is his ability to write jingles for ad campaigns. So that's it for the 12 jurors. I think Reginald Rose, the playwright, really gave us 12 great personalities, each of them unique, and our director, Debbie Hershey, has given this play 12 actors who fit these roles really well.
Guy talks like that to an old man who really gets stepped on, you know? Hey, you ought to have some respect, mister. You say stuff like that to him again, I'm gonna lay you out. Go ahead. You can say anything you want. Why do you think the old man might lie?